Okay. So have you ever, like, tried to pay for something online
Uh-huh.
and, like, your bank's app is just totally frozen?
Oh, yeah,
Or
definitely.
maybe, like, the internet just goes out for, like, no reason?
It's the worst
Yeah, and it's like we rely on all this technology so much, right?
all the time, and
But what happens when it just stops working?
it can be pretty scary.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Totally.
We're talking about NIS2, which are these new cybersecurity rules.
Yeah, from the European Union.
Exactly, and they're pretty serious about keeping things running smoothly, even if, someone tries to cause some trouble online.
Huge focus on cybersecurity, for sure.
So to break this all down, we've got a bunch of reports and analysis on NIS2.
Lots to unpack there.
Yeah, we're going to look at what's actually in these rules, why they matter, even if you don't live in Europe.
Right, it's a global impact.
And maybe even some like surprisingly easy things companies are doing.
Oh, yeah, some of it is simpler than you might think.
So to kick things off, could you give us a quick rundown of what NIS2 is really all about?
Sure, so NIS2, it's basically an update to the EU's cybersecurity rules, making them, I guess you could say, more intense.
More intense. Okay.
It's not totally new, though. It builds on what they already had in place.
Makes sense. So it's like version 2.0.
Exactly. But the main thing is they've expanded what's covered, like way more industries are included now.
Oh, really? Like what? What kind of industries?
Well, all the like obvious ones, energy, transportation,
Yeah,
healthcare,
those make sense. Critical stuff.
but also things you might not expect, like food supply.
Food supply. Okay, that's interesting.
Right. Because think about it, if someone hacks into those systems, disrupts the supply chain.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that could cause huge problems.
Shortages, price spikes, even like social unrest.
It's like suddenly cybersecurity is about way more than just our computers.
It really is about keeping society functioning.
Exactly. And that's what I think is so interesting about this. It's not just like protecting data anymore. It's like protecting our way of life.
Right. It's that big picture stuff.
So, okay, we've got this expanded scope. What else is new with NIS2?
Well, the security requirements themselves are a lot tougher.
Cover how so?
Companies have to have things like really strong access controls, who can get into their systems, encryption to protect sensitive data, and they have to have a solid plan for if something does go wrong, like a cyber attack.
So like a plan B.
More like a plan C, D, and E.
Wow, they're not messing around.
Nope. And then there's this thing about reporting incidents within 24 hours.
24 hours. So like no time to waste.
Seriously, no more sweeping things under the rug.
Okay, so that's definitely a big change. Anything else companies need to know about?
Well, NIS2 also dives into supply chain security.
Meaning?
So basically, companies need to make sure their partners, like the people they work with, they have to meet the same standards because one weak link can bring down the whole chain.
That makes sense. It's all connected.
It is, and that's a big theme with NIS2, recognizing how interconnected everything is.
I see. So it's really trying to create this like web of protection.
Exactly. It's not enough for just one company to be secure.
So this all sounds really important, but like, why should I care? If I don't work in one of these sectors?
That's a fair question, but think about it. We all rely on these essential services every day, right?
Yeah, for sure.
We need electricity, we need hospitals, we need food.
Okay, I'm seeing the connection now.
If any of those systems go down, it affects us all.
So like NIS2 is protecting me even if I don't even realize it.
Exactly. It's about ensuring that society can function, that we can all go about our lives without worrying that some cyber attack is going to disrupt everything.
And that's not even mentioning the economic impact, right?
Oh, yeah. A major cyber attack could be devastating to the global economy. We're talking billions, maybe trillions of dollars in losses.
So really, NIS2 is trying to prevent like a global catastrophe.
In a way, yes.
Okay, well, that's definitely something to think about. And speaking of consequences, what happens to companies that just ignore all of this? Like, what if they just say NIS2, SMEES2, and keep doing their own thing?
Well, the EU isn't playing around here. There are some pretty hefty penalties for non-compliance.
Hefty like how?
We're talking fines up to 10 million euros or 2% of global annual turnover, whichever is higher.
Whoa, that's serious money.
It is, and it's a clear message that the EU is serious about enforcing these rules.
And they've actually fined companies before, right?
Oh, yeah. There have been some pretty high-profile cases, companies getting hit with massive fines for data breaches and not having their security in order.
So this is a real threat, not just an empty warning.
Absolutely, and it's something companies need to take seriously.
Okay, so let's say a company wants to comply. Where do they even start?
Well, there are 6 key steps they need to take.
6 steps, all right? Lay them on me.
First, they need to figure out if they're even covered by NIS2 because it doesn't apply to every single business.
Makes sense. So first step, check if you need to do this at all.
Exactly. Then they need to do a risk assessment.
Risk assessment, so like figure out their weaknesses.
Exactly. Find out where they're vulnerable to cyber attacks. Then, based on that, they need to put the right security measures in place.
So like the stronger the risk, the
Yeah.
stronger the protection.
Makes sense. Right.
Yeah, definitely.
And then they need a plan for what to do if a cyber attack does happen.
Like a fire drill, but for hackers.
Basically, yeah. So they can respond quickly and minimize the damage.
So it's not just about preventing attacks, but also about knowing what to do when they happen.
Exactly. It's a two-pronged approach.
Gotcha. What else?
Well, they also need to make sure their supply chain is secure, like we talked about before.
So everyone they work with needs to be on the same page.
Exactly. It's a team effort.
Right. And lastly,
Documentation, they need to document all their policies, procedures, and any incidents that occur.
so like keep really good records.
Exactly. It's not just about doing the right things, it's about being able to prove you're doing them.
So if the EU comes knocking, you've got all your ducks in a row.
Exactly. It's all about accountability.
Now, out of all those steps, the ones that stood out to me were employee training and documentation, because they seem almost, I don't know, too simple.
Right. But they're actually incredibly important.
So like what kind of training are we talking about here?
Well, things like recognizing phishing emails, knowing how to handle sensitive data securely, basically, giving employees the knowledge they need to make good security decisions.
Because one wrong click can cause a lot of damage.
It really can, and documentation is just as crucial because it shows that you're taking cybersecurity seriously, that you have clear policies in place, and that you're tracking what's happening on your network.
So it's like showing your work.
Exactly. If you can't prove you're doing the right things, then it's like you're not doing them at all.
Makes sense. So it's not just about security itself. It's about transparency and accountability.
Absolutely. It's a whole mindset shift.
Wow, this has been really eye-opening. And even though we've covered a lot, I think the big takeaway is that NIS2 is about so much more than just like technical stuff.
Totally. It's about protecting our way of life, about ensuring that society can function even in the face of cyber threats.
And it affects all of us, whether we realize it or not.
Exactly. It's about creating a more resilient digital world for everyone.
Absolutely. Well said. And with that, I think it's time to wrap things up. But I'd like to leave our listeners with a question.
Okay, shoot.
In this increasingly digital world, what are your biggest concerns about cybersecurity?
Ooh, good one.
And what steps can you take in your own life to protect yourself and your data online? Because it's not just up to governments and companies. We all have a role to play.
Couldn't agree more. It's a shared responsibility.
So think about that, do your research, and stay safe out there in the digital world.
Until next time.
See ya.